How's it going, you sexy beasts? My name is Drathmus, and today we'll be covering the strategy to defeat the very first boss in Highmaul, Kargath Bladefist. This will be on normal and heroic difficulty, as both difficulties involve the same exact mechanics for the fight, but with just more or less damage being involved. Due to this boss being the very first in Highmaul, the overall difficulty of the fight is quite manageable and involves many rinse and repeat phases. So go ahead and sit back, relax, kick open a brewski, and prepare to kick this amputee's ass. Though Kargath himself is pretty menacing with his swordy hand and all, it's the Colosseum in which you engage him that's far more dangerous. The center of the arena holds a ring in which the tank should be kept at all times. This is to avoid players standing within the 4 smaller circles plotted around the center ring, which are marked with a skull. Upon pulling Kargath, these skulls will begin to emerge from the ground and spawn a flame pillar, which will deal damage and knock back anyone caught within its range, as well as dealing a hefty amount of damage from its fire dot. Melee shouldn't have to worry about these, but designated ranged and healers should be placed near the outskirts of these telegraphed fire damage rings for Kargath's next ability, which is Beserker Rush. This targets a random player at range and fixates himself, causing massive cleave damage and increased run speed for the 20-second duration. Every 2 seconds during his rush, he will gain a stacking buff that increases damage dealt and movement speed. To counter this, your designated ranged or healers that do get fixated need to kite Kargath through one of the flame traps. The boss will get a little bit pissed and cause the pillar to recede into the ground once again, stopping its fire AoE. Whomever is targeted with the Beserker Rush should avoid using any threat dropping abilities such as Feign Death, as Kargath will pick a new target at range, which could cause him to immediately turn around and cleave the crap out of any melee to death. Kargath's bread and butter ability that is cast throughout the fight is Blade Dance, which looks like he has a ghost form of himself flying out and slapping random members of the raid. This deals physical damage to the target and is completely unavoidable on their end. However, it also does cleave damage to anyone within 7 yards of the target. To avoid the additional damage, just make sure everyone in your raid is spread out 7 yards from one another. Blade Dance will target melee DPS as well, so there's not much that can be done in regards to spreading out and avoiding additional damage, so expect having to heal your melee DPS a lot more than ranged in this fight. During the encounter, Kargath will be casting Impale, which will be used on the tank every 45 seconds, dealing a moderate amount of damage over 8 seconds. After Impale is finished channeling, the tank will be debuffed with Open Wounds, which increases the damage taken by Impale by 100% for 75 seconds, which stacks. The first Impale is pretty okay and manageable, but the tank should use personal defensive cooldowns on the second Impale to give the healers some more breathing room. Impale and Open Wounds is the tank swap mechanic in which 2 tanks in the raid should be taunting off one another after 2 stacks of Open Wounds. Shortly after the tank has required 2 stacks of Open Wounds, Kargath will knock everyone back and begin casting Chain Hurl. For this mechanic, designate 4 people in your raid to immediately run to Kargath after the knockback. These 4 people should be 3 DPS with very strong AoE damage potential, a healer, and whichever tank with 2 stacks of Open Wounds. Chain Hurl will pick the 5 closest targets, so the specified 4 Stand Group people and the debuff tank should move in to be as close to Kargath as possible after the knockback. Once he begins casting Chain Hurl and has picked up the 5 closest players, them being your assigned people, it is safe for melee to return into range and continue DPSing. After Chain Hurl is finished casting, the boss will fling the 5 players up into the stands. At this point, movement speed buffs should be used to assist the tank in picking up the mobs. Throughout the fight, Iron Bombers and Drunken Bile Slingers are throwing damage over time debuffs and green puddles of damage respectively into the Colosseum safely from their stands. The tank should run to the left, pick up all the bombers and bile slingers, then immediately shift to the opposite side of the stands to pick up the remainder of mobs. The Iron Grunts have no impact on the raid below, but will slow players in the stands with them. Focus on killing the Bile Slinger Ogres and the Iron Bomber Orcs, but be careful as the bombers do explode upon death, dealing moderate damage to anyone around them. You will have about 1 minute to clear out the stands before an Ogre will pull out through your stands group and send them back into the Colosseum. At this point, the tank that was in the stands should now taunt Kargath, as their Open Wound stack should have now dropped. You've now seen all the mechanics for the fight, and at this point it's rinse and repeat until the boss is dead. To recap, just keep your ranged and healers next to active flame pillars to kite Kargath into them during his Beserker Rush. Have the tanks taunt at 2 stacks of open wounds, and the tank with those 2 stacks need to run into Chain Hurl with your 3 DPS and healer to take out the bombers and bile slingers in the stands. Extra heals on those affected with a dot from the Iron Bombers. Don't stand in the bile slingers' green bile, and you've got the fight on lockdown. Just make sure to avoid the kitted cages as much as possible, as they'll more than likely one-shot you if you just so happen to fall into them, a la Gladiator style. There you have it, you sexy beasts, my guide to normal and heroic Kargath Bladefist, the first boss in Highmaul. Hopefully you found this video informative, helpful, or entertaining in any way. If you did, please give it a big ass thumbs up. If you find something that I can improve upon, please do not hesitate to let me know in the comment section below. Stay sexy, kick Kargath's butt, and make sure to subscribe. It's absolutely free, and I'll see you in the next one.
And that's 100. Cho'Gall? You thought to imprison us, Morgok?
You could never control us!
Guards, stop him! Destroy them all! Raze this city to the ground!
The stones will be ours! All shall fall to darkness!
Seal the gates! Protect the palace! Highmaul will never fall to the likes of you!